Hey, what's up, Bills Mafia? Welcome to another episode of Circling the Wagons, a Buffalo fan base podcast. I am your host, Nate. Guys, thank you so much for joining us on this first ever Buffalo fan base YouTube video cast, whatever you want to call it, podcast episode of Circling the Wagons. We're excited, especially not only that this is our first time doing a podcast on the YouTube channel here, but this is the first time we've talked Buffalo Bills this season and they won. So this is going to be an excellent show. A lot of good stuff to talk about. Lots of exciting stuff as a Bills fan. And then also, we'll talk about some other things, maybe things that weren't 100% perfect, things that we could obviously work on, the Bills could work on rather, and go from there. So I'd like to join my co-hosts, John and Mike, to the stage. John, what's going on, brother? Good to talk Bills with you. How you feeling after the win?
Feeling pretty good. Can you hear me, Nate?
Yeah, I hear you loud and clear, buddy.
Awesome. I had some issues earlier where I couldn't hear you guys. I'm good now.
Dude, you know what's
Feeling
funny? God.
what's funny?
It's funny is we're like, this is our first time doing this video, and it's like it's one of those things where you notice the Bills weren't like in regular season form completely. I'd say the same thing about the Cardinals today. Like lots of penalties, lots of missteps, miscues, whatever you want to call it. But it's kind of like this for the podcast. So I feel like we're just, mirroring the Buffalo Bills. So that's not the worst thing. It's not the worst thing to do.
Yeah, it's like this every year. There's always something. Somebody's got a bad mic. We don't have plugged in right.
Some of us have a bad mic, John. Some of us.
Some of us does.
some of us be having. All right, John, so thoughts on the game in general? How you feeling?
Feeling good. Felt nervous going in. The first game jitters as always. First half obviously was rough, but defense buttoned up. Josh Allen came through. Lots of good things in the second half. Lots of things to look forward to. Happy to come out with a win. Love it. First football. We're football. I love it.
We're football. We're back. All right, I'd like to welcome our other co-host of the podcast, Mike. Mike, what's going on, man? Don't hear you. Preseason form? No, just kidding. Regular season form.
I loved it. It's been too long without football, and to have a win the first week, outstanding.
Yeah, it feels good. This game was kind of I looked at the spread before the game. It was 6.5 points. And I was thinking, with the Bills, with so many new pieces on their offense and defense, first time play caller and Bobby Babich, like things go new special team stuff, Tyler Bass, the thing about him, going around the preseason, I was like, this is going to be a closer game than I think people thought. But I mean, it came down to basically the last drive. So this was a tough game. It wasn't a pretty game by any means, but as bad as the officiating was, it was bad both ways. I think that you could argue the Bills got away with a few, particularly at the end of the game, which I'm fine with because the Bills aren't used to getting those calls. So I'm excited. I wasn't upset with how bad it was at the end because a win is a win. Everything's ugly this time of year. I mean, the Bengals lost to the Patriots, for God's sake. I mean, things happen this early. So to walk away with any win, I'm happy with it.
Yeah, I think we expected them to spread the ball around, but both tight ends caught a pass. Every wide receiver caught a pass, and then as did Cook and Ray Davis. So they definitely spread it around. I think it was great. They ran the ball well, as they should. The Cardinals defense isn't the best. I think the first half, the problem was the Cardinals had the ball for so long, which, 10 possession. But defense buttoned up in the second half, and that really helped out a lot. So I think there was a lot of miscues for both teams and a lot of miscues for refs against both teams. So it is what it is. They came out with a win, and I'm really happy about it.
Dude, I like that you brought up the second half defense because I know we're going to do, for those that aren't familiar with our podcast or anything that we've done before in pregame, postgame, whatever, on our postgame recap, we usually go over stats of the game, Sweet Sassy Molassy plays of the game, our Wall of Fame and Wall of Shame. And to be honest, like I think I didn't give it my Wall of Fame, but Bobby Babich's adjustment in the second half. Granted, hopefully, it wasn't because Sean McDermott took over the play calling that it was really Bobby Babich, but I mean, he buttoned it up. I mean, they went from being up 17-10 in the first half to the Cardinals really only scoring 4 points in the rest, or I'm sorry, 3 points the rest of the game, because that other touchdown was off of a kick return. So, I mean, say what you will, like Bobby Babich's defense like buttoned up in the second half. They went from 17-10 to basically only scoring another field goal. That's pretty good. I'll give him the nod there. And on defense, like we were talking about, like pass rush and stuff like that. I was tweeting out in the beginning of the game. By the way, if you're not following us, please do at CTW Pod. But the Bills weren't able to get any pass rush on Kyler Murray, and that changed in the second half. The Bills were finally able to generate some pressure. Greg Rousseau had a great game. I think the Bills' offense in general wasn't like not clicking. They just didn't have a chance to really get the ball in the first half because the Cardinals were sustaining long drives, and it was a big defensive issue. And then they found a way, and they got their confidence back. So I'm happy. Let's go quickly into stats of the game. Stats of the game. Arizona, let's go to start with Buffalo. Josh Allen, 18 for 23, 232 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He did have that one fumble, probably really one of his only bad plays of the game, besides maybe that missed pass to, who was that? Marquez Valdez-Scantling for a first down on third down in the second half. I think those 2 plays were probably his only miscues of the day, really. James Cook, the leading rusher for the Bills, 19 carries for 71 yards. Captain Cook. Josh Allen, 9 carries for 39 yards, 2 touchdowns. Ray Davis, 3 carries for 13 yards. Ty Johnson, who left with an injury, at 2 carries for 7 yards. Keon Coleman, the leading receiver for the Buffalo Bills. Keon Coleman, 4 receptions on 5 targets for 51 yards. Khalil Shakir, 3 receptions on 3 targets for 42 yards and a touchdown. James Cook, 3 for 3, 32 yards. And Mac Hollins, 2 for 2, 25 yards. And like John mentioned, so many people getting the ball today. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 receivers. 10 people catching the ball on the offense, which is pretty darn good for the Buffalo Bills. So on the Arizona side of the ball, Cardinals, Kyler Murray, 21 for 31, 162 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions. Kyler Murray also was the leading rusher for the Cardinals, 5 attempts for 57 yards. That's something they definitely stopped in the second half too, by the way, was letting Kyler Murray get those really big chunks. And I'm kind of surprised that the Cardinals didn't use a little bit more of him running, because he is so dangerous when he has the ball in his hands. Let's see. Greg Dortch was the leading receiver for the Cardinals, 6 receptions on 8 targets for 47 yards. James Conner, Trey McBride, then something DeMarcado as the other leading receiver. So yeah, lots of stuff there. So that's what stats of the game. Now let's go into our favorite play of the game. Let's go into Sweet Sassy Molassy plays of the game. Now, Sweet Sassy Molassy play of the game, for those that aren't familiar, is our favorite play of the game. It can be the most important game or the most important play. It could be one of the least important plays. You just really like it a lot. So, John, I'll start with you. Sweet Sassy Molassy play of the game in this Buffalo Bills victory over the Cardinals.
I forgot about this segment. I wasn't prepared. But first thing that came to my head when you said it was the Gregory Rousseau forced fumble where Dorian Williams recovered. So I'll go with that one.
That was a good one, John. That was a good one. That made my top 3. Mike, Sweet Sassy Molassy play of the game.
It's the Josh Allen leap for the touchdown. That's got to be number 1.
The Josh Allen leap for the touchdown. Here, I'm going to see if I can. I don't know if I'll be able to share.
Is that the one where he got injured and we don't know how he's going to be next week?
My favorite play, the one where he landed on his left arm awkwardly. It might be a wrist fracture. Yeah, we'll see. It was an awesome play though. Awesome play. At least it was his non-throwing hand that he got injured on. So, John, I'm going to come back to you in a second, but there's no way you're going to beat mine, and that is the Bills just not getting penalized for the last play of the game by Sweet Sassy Molassy play of the game. It was Damar Hamlin, Cam Lewis, give Cam Lewis and Damar Hamlin credit today. Like, Damar Hamlin, I thought, had a decent game. Cam Lewis had a decent game. Sure, there were some misses, but Cam Lewis wasn't even supposed to be starting today. It was the Taron Johnson injury that led to, Cam Lewis getting the nod. But it was Cam Lewis back there, Damar Hamlin against Greg Dortch, and neither of them looked back for the ball. They were right there, and how they didn't get called for that, I have no idea. We're so used to the Bills just never getting that call, right? Like this, the Bills don't get that call. So I'm okay with that. That was my favorite play of the game.
It was Yeah, definitely interesting down the stretch there. There could have been a couple of calls against the Bills that didn't happen. Obviously, there were calls that were against the Bills earlier in the game that maybe shouldn't have happened. So I think between everything, it all balanced out. But yeah, like when Turin went down and Cam Lewis came in for him, Cam Lewis was supposed to be the dime player, and so he became the nickel and Ingram. That's why we saw so much of Ingram.
He became the dime player.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he was the guy at the end there with the Hail Mary where
Oh, that's what it was. It was Ingram. It was Ingram
yeah,
and Hamlin. Okay.
yeah. So yeah, it worked out well. And I think Sal tweeted that out too, like about that specifically.
Are
But
you trying to
that was
say I stole it
good.
from Sal Sports? Is that what you're trying to say, John?
I
Like
think
that exact thing that you said was tweeted by Sal Sports right before we started recording.
I'm thinking that you and I and Sal all saw the same thing.
Oh, I'll take that. I'll take that all day long. I thought you were calling me a cheater. What you calling me, a liar? Like I thought you were
No, I think no.
you're saying great minds think alike. I like that.
Yeah, I'm just going into more depth with it. So.
Dude, you know, I'll always, as opposed to criticism, I'll always take some, like, combined credit. I'll take credit any way I can get it, so much less combined credit. So, yeah, cool. So, John, do you have one now, or are you still a sweet sassy last play of the game, or is it the strip sack for Rousseau, or is it the?
No, I'll stick with the strip sack. I mean, they're all good plays. I mean, they're all great.
I wanted to give, so we do the Gettysburg of the game when there's a game-changing play, and I think that Rousseau strip sack was the changing play of the game, Mike. I liked that. I mean, I felt like that changed the momentum. It was 17. The Bills had come out of the half. I mean, you could argue that like Josh Allen's crazy rushing touchdown in midair was the play of the game or the turning point of the game because they were down 17-3. That brought them back to 17-10. The halftime, halftime comes and goes. Mac Hollis has an 11-yard touchdown pass, then it's tied, and it's right after that. Rousseau gets the strip in the Dorian Williams recovery, and Khalil Shakir has an 11-yard touchdown catch. Which, by the way, that Khalil Shakir touchdown where he basically slid on the back of that Cardinals defensive lineman, like that was an amazing play. Like that was an awesome touchdown to see. I'm gonna give credit to Khalil Shakir. Khalil Shakir is the yak receiver that we've always wanted. Like he is so hard to bring down. So hard to bring down. All right, those were sweet, sassy, molassy plays of the game. And now we are on to Wall of Fame and Wall of Shame.
Bro, your little ticker at the bottom cuts me off. I don't like that. Oh, there we go. Huh?
I like it. I like it better when it does it.
You can put it back. I'm about to pass out, bro. I gotta make my mouth hole bigger.
You need to make your nose and your mouth hole bigger. You end up in your eye hole so you can see better.
Not my nose hole. I can't breathe out of my nose.
Allergies are terrible this time. The ragweed, man. It's the ragweed. It was funny if you end up like
I'd like to play allergies. I just think nobody ever told me.
It's definitely allergies, dude. It's definitely allergies.
So I'm confused by your acronyms. Like MVP doesn't really jive with Wall of Fame, and LVP doesn't jive with Wall of Shame. Why don't we just do WOF and WOS?
Oh, why did I?
Why even have an acronym unless you're like writing something
you
where you're going to use it again later?
You actually call it most valuable player, at least valuable player. Like they don't make sense.
Yeah, I agree. It doesn't make any sense.
Okay, well, I'll change it for next episode. Thanks for the notes on it, guys.
You got it.
I got rid of it. I'm looking at it live on my other screen, so I just removed the MVP and LVP. People that don't know Wall of Fame, Wall of Shame, they're gonna wonder. Actually, it's pretty obvious, isn't it? I don't give the listeners and viewers enough credit. It's pretty freaking obvious. Okay, so Wall of Fame, Wall of Fame for the Buffalo Bills in this game. John, I know you weren't ready for Sweet Sassy Molassy play the game. Are you ready for Wall of Fame?
I am, but it's a tie for me.
Oh, a tie. All right, let's hear it. Mike and I will be the tiebreakers.
I don't know. Mike doesn't like when I give it to multiple people, but
yeah, because it's singular. That's why I don't like it.
I don't mind it, John. Go ahead.
Thank you. Josh Allen, 18-23, 232, 2 touchdowns, 9 carries, 39 yards, and 2 touchdowns, 200 total yards. Obviously, huge reason why they won. I also want to
give stop right there.
Nope.
That's the reason.
Nope. I'm also giving it to Gregory Rousseau with 3 sacks and a forced fumble that led to a turnover. It was awesome. Giving it to Rousseau as well for the 1B, I guess.
Oh, those are the two I had on my top list for Wall of Fame. Oh, it's a tough one. It's a
It's
tough
not
one.
tough at all. Starts and ends with Allen. 4 total touchdowns. It's the Player of the Week performance.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, you do have to get it. It's like when do we not give it to Allen though? Like when Allen has like a subpar game, right, or like an okay game, right? Then we can finally, even if they win, then we find a way to give it to someone else. Then, so yeah, I mean, yeah, they don't win this one without Allen, even as well as Greg Rousseau. I like both of them, John. I give it the honorable mention to Rousseau, but the Wall of Fame goes to Josh Allen. I'm sure you agree with that, Mike. You don't have someone better than Josh Allen, obviously. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just, I was listening to a podcast recently. It was just like,
John's contrarian just to be contrarian. We know this.
I was listening to a podcast where they were talking about Josh Allen and like wishing that he didn't have to be superhuman in order for the Bills to win regularly. And I kind of got that feeling today. Like, what was nice about the Bills in general is they didn't like waver. They were down 17-3. And normally what would happen, like I think in previous seasons, maybe even as early as last season, like Josh would just start to be like, all right, I need to put the team on my shoulder and I'm going to like just step back and chuck it, right? Like just, and he didn't take a lot of deep passes today. There's a lot of run plays, a lot of short to intermediate passes, and he didn't press, which I thought was a really good thing for Josh Allen to not do. And I think it's a maturation. I think it's like, we know we're still better than this team. Let's keep playing and it will even out sort of thing. And it did. So
Well,
yeah,
they fell into the hole so early, I think, too. You knew you had a ton of time left. You score quickly before the half, and then right, you get the ball back, double dip, and like it's tied again. So I think that's why you don't see any sense of the hero ball or the panic, like just knowing, like, hey, we're right there. Just failed to execute a couple of times.
yeah, agree. That was nice to see, though. I feel like, with a new, and you can't be upset at the Bills offense. I mean, for putting up 34 points. I mean, that was a good showing by the offense. Defense could have been a little better. Let's go into Wall of Shame in this victory. John, I'll start with you again. Wall of Shame for the Buffalo Bills. Who do you put on it?
For me, it was the offensive line penalties.
Oh, that one on Osiris Torrance was a killer.
There was a bunch, though. There was, false starts and holdings and things. It is too many overall. And it was across the board. It wasn't like one player every time. It was a bunch of them. So,
or Bass kicking it into the out of bounds or whatever, right? Like there's a lot of them.
yeah, but I mean, like the offensive line, like there was a bunch of penalties. Or the Bass had one. Okay, he had one bad kick. It was a one play. The offensive line had a bunch of penalties, so that's why I went with the offensive line.
Yeah, I like the penalties. You know, it's funny. We won't probably talk about Bass from here on out, but it's nice that he had a good game. Like it's a good growing game. He didn't have to kick any 50-yard game winners or anything like that. Like this is what he needed. I think is like a first game to like ease into it. Okay, I can get my confidence back. I can do this, because we don't need him getting the yips. All right, we don't need him.
He didn't miss today.
No, he didn't look good. Mike, what about your wall of shame for the
You
Bills?
can't let the kick return touchdown happen there in that situation. So special teams on that play for me.
Yeah, good call, Mike. That's the game would have probably been sealed if it wasn't for that 96-yard touchdown kickoff return. Yeah, agreed. You know what's funny is every time like I want to start giving the special teams some credit, a play like that happens and I just throw my hands in the air. It's like when Brandon Codrington, the Bills, newly acquired kick returner that they traded for, when he returned that to the 50-yard line or something on the opening on their first return, I was thinking to myself, wow, the special teams could be decent this year. And then the kickoff return happened. I'm like, all right, well, all right, back to frustratingly, insanely upsetting, back to their ways of being super inconsistent and mostly bad over good. So we'll see. We'll see if that changes.
I agree 100%. Like coming into this season, I was down on the kick coverage and down on the kick returning, and then obviously the kickers and the kicking and punting itself had been inconsistent recently. And the same exact thing. Codrington returned the long thing. It's like, oh, I got excited, and then the kick coverage failed on the other one. We don't know if Bass was supposed to kick it out of the end zone on that play or not, and the whole thing. It's frustrating. But on the other side, it's like during like the drought years, that was the only thing they were good at with special teams. And it's like, well, I guess I'd rather have a good offense and defense than special teams if I had to pick. But it's just frustrating overall.
Yeah, special teams is a good one to put on the wall of shame. I was gonna put on the wall of shame like Bobby Babich's first half play calling, but then again, like he made up for it in the second half. So if I gave him his first half the wall of shame, I got to give the second half the wall of fame. But I'm gonna go with penalties. I was gonna go with the refereeing, but it was kind of bad both ways. So it doesn't feel fair to just give it to the refereeing in general, because I mean there were more bad calls against the Bills than there were against the Cardinals, but the last one, I don't know if it was truly a pass interference penalty or if I'm just so used to seeing that against the Bills being called that like I was just expected it. You know what I mean? Like I don't know if that truly was or not. We're just used to always seeing that flag come out for that last throw,
Yeah, I don't think that last throw was worthy of a penalty, but like was it the play before where the receiver fell down and we made contact, or 2 plays before?
They
That
didn't call
could
it.
have been a penalty.
I'm surprised they didn't call that one. Dude, isn't it crazy that like I mean, we didn't go over this in stats because we only went through like the first 4 or 5 Arizona Cardinals. I mean, the last person on the stat sheet is Marvin Harrison Jr. with 1 reception on 3 targets for 4 yards. Like that was surprising to me. I almost want to give the wall of shame to like the Cardinals for underutilizing their first pick this year in the draft.
He definitely dropped at least one. I remember
Mm-hmm.
him dropping one blatantly. But he was also wide open on another one later on where Murray didn't find him.
Dude, that is the benefit, though, of the Bills' game plan in the second half was to keep him in the pocket because it's a lot harder for Kyler Murray to see those guys running wide open if he's in the pocket. Whereas if he's, coming out around the edge, he's got a little bit of a clear path. But if he's got, 5 or 6 or 7, 6'4" guys in front of him, it's a little bit harder to see, Marvin Harrison Jr. streaking open.
How about that Keon Coleman catch down the sideline?
Oh, that was nice.
It was so good. I was cheering so hard for that. That felt so good because there was a whole reason. Like over the last few years, like the receivers for the Bills have been dropping balls, whether it was Gabe Davis or Diggs down the stretch or whoever else. Then they got Keon Coleman. Like these guys are supposed to catch the ball, and not that Kincaid was targeted that much this game, but last year he was, and he caught the ball. And to see Coleman do that, I think that was just awesome.
Yeah, he's not only the leading receiver, he had that huge play, like you said, that long 28-yard catch by the sidelines. Yeah, I mean, just proving why, like, he was who the Bills drafted with their first pick. And not to say that, like, it just didn't work out. Maybe the Bills had done such a good job covering Marvin Harrison Jr. that they didn't think he was open. But, man, if you take away you could argue one of the biggest threats in the NFL, or will be soon, then Bills had a good game plan altogether. Just finally got out of their own way in the second half. Do you guys agree with me on that Gettysburg of the game turning point, that Rousseau strip?
Yeah.
Mike's like, yeah, of course. That was my sweet sassy molasses play of the game. I love that. Love it. Cool. So let's go over to Twitter, where I ask after every game. By the way, if you're not following us on Twitter, please do. We're at CTW Pod. And I am going to share my screen. All right. Let's do this. Let's see how this looks. Not bad. Okay, cool. All right, this works. All right. After every game, I say, what's your hot take after the Bills win or loss? And just like always, you guys never disappoint. This is the first time. So if you're listening, you'll hear your name. But the first time that if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook or whatever, you'll actually see your name brought up. So Richard W. Griswold forgot what a stroke-inducing thing it is to be a Bills fan. Richard, you were enjoying the off season, which is like not only the off season from football, but the off season from stroke season. So glad you didn't stroke out, Richard. How does anyone give up a kickoff return touchdown with these arcane rules? Groot had a monster day, as did Allen. Whatever the halftime adjustments were, defensive adjustments were, they worked. Props to Coach Babich. Even Vaughn got in the act. Yeah, Vaughn actually like lucked himself into a sack somehow. So Buffalo Dill says, better get our shit together, and I'll give Josh Allen my left hand if he needs it. Mine is a little shorter and sausage-like, though. Hey, that's fair. Most of us are compared to Josh these days. Also, Kim Lewis put his big boy pants on before he came to work today. That's why he makes the 53. Just don't put him in coverage versus Justin Jefferson. That's fair. Koala Bear Khan. My take is good adjustments around for all phases. Offense got their spark back. Defense made big plays to stop the Cardinals' drive in the second half. Special teams, Bass making field goals when called. However, he did give a scare when he kicked that one kickoff out of bounds. Yeah, no kidding. Anthony says, at least we aren't Carolina Panthers fans. Charles Byrne says, a sloppy win. I feel and I wish Josh Allen would stop leaping into the air. One of these days, he is going to get really get hurt. Josh, you're not 22 anymore. That's fair. That's a fair point right there. Guys, I know it's like Josh Allen's fine. He'll probably play next week. But do you ever see those and you're just like, man, just slide? Of course, he could probably get his head taken off that way too, but just slide, right?
It gets hard to. He's a competitor, and then like, how do you distinguish like which game is like you're trying to win the game? You're trying to get a touchdown. He's diving in at the end zone, so I don't know.
He thinks he can do it, and he did it. It just didn't come without a price, It was an awesome play. And, the NFL is tweeting it out, everywhere, and it's like, big for the league. But, yeah, I mean, eventually Cam Newton was doing a lot of that, too, earlier in his career. When he got to, I want to say about Josh Allen's age, maybe 29, that those plays stopped happening. Not saying that Josh is Cam Newton, but, I mean, he's huge like Cam Newton. He's strong like the guy.
Well, Newton had that injury too. That
injury caused by getting hit because he was running the ball.
well, I don't remember.
He had that huge career-ending injury. I can't remember what it was for. No,
was he in the pocket when that? But no, though he did have injuries.
Bill Lath, Khalil Shakir is wide receiver 1. Oh, I like that take. We didn't see enough of Curtis Samuel or Marquez Valdez-Scantling, but maybe there's a reason for that. So he says Khalil Shakir is wide receiver 1. I love him breaking tackles after the catch, and our receiver room is terribly underrated. Coleman, Curtis, and Khalil are going to have a good year. CCK.
Collins had a good game for the fourth wide receiver.
Collins?
Right? Both his catches were good. The one for the touchdown was really good.
See, this is one of those things where, like, the Bills might not even have a wide receiver 1. So that's the only reason I was, not grabbing onto what Bill was saying, because, they might actually be telling the truth when they say everyone eats in this offense, because Dalton Kincaid, who we kind of thought was going to be the wide receiver 1 for the Bills this year, had, 1 reception on 2 targets.
Yeah.
So.
And Knox only had 1 reception too. It was really spread around. 2 running backs had catches too.
Definitely. All right. Who else do we have on Twitter? Now, YouTube, they can actually see if I'm going to be like scrolling past and be like, that's not good enough. Karen Poole says it's going to be a long, stressful season of close games with Allen carrying this team on his back. LOL. Yeah, it's going to be but I feel like that's every season. Shannon says the offense is very different. It's also good. I feel like, do you guys get the feeling that today's offense was a lot different than last year's offense? I'm trying to think of like big differences, but I mean, it was nice because they had a lot of throws out of the backfield, which I think was a thing in the second half of the year when Joe Brady took over, which is kind of nice. They ran the ball well. I mean, I think it was just when they finally had a chance to get the ball, you got to see what their offense was, as opposed to you weren't able to see a lot of it in the first half because they didn't get the ball a lot. So they didn't have the ball for a long amount of time.
Yeah, I think it was well balanced. It was, run and pass. I don't know what the numbers were, but it seems like it was well balanced. And then when they did pass, it was spread around a lot. So I think that's really a good thing to have, be able to do anything.
Couldn't you see? Now, I'm not trying to draw up speculation or whatever, but couldn't you see if that was their identity for the offense in the second half of last year, and Stephon Diggs wasn't as big of a part of it as he normally was, and they're like, "Yeah, we're gonna keep doing more of that, Stephon." He'd be like, "All right, I'm out." Like I don't like this offense. I don't like the way it's being done or whatever. Like he could easily have been like saw that and said like, "That's not for me. That's fine."
Did he get 2 touchdowns today?
Yes, he did have 2 touchdowns today. He looked good. He looked good. We didn't get rid of him because we thought he was bad, right?
Yeah, I mean,
He's good.
they got a second-round pick next year.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Diggs, you got to understand with
And they got out from a lot of money next year. They
Dig
ate it this year, but next year they get money back.
yeah, definitely. Definitely. They paid for it, but I mean, again, like he's a good wide receiver. Sure, like this is his first game back. Like he'll probably have a really good season this year. I don't know, good like Buffalo Bills good, but probably have a good season this year. And then, he'll have a good season next season. And then, from there we'll
Well,
see. But
yeah, well, it's interesting because like the Texans took him basically on a 1-year rental the way they did it. And Nico Collins and Tank Dell are probably the top 2 receivers on that team. So like over the course of the season, when you divvy up the stats, I don't know if Diggs is going to be. He's probably going to be number 3 on that team, but
yeah.
number 3 on that team could still be good
Yeah,
because
I know.
CJ Stroud and everything. But
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So still a rental player, but yeah, it might be a good call for them, dude. That might be what puts them over the edge. We'll see. We'll see. I'm hoping it's not, but we'll see. Chad Labrie says, first half was scary, but the team regrouped in the second half and came out to dominate the second half. Shakir with an amazing touchdown catch and run. Diggs, who? speaking of Stephon Diggs. That's what good teams do. How many years, especially during the drought, did we watch the Buffalo Bills act like the Arizona Cardinals today? Where like they're an underdog, they come in, they put up some points quickly, but then they always eventually used to just kind of cough it up, find a way to lose in the second half of the game. Whereas I feel like this team, that's what makes this team different under Sean McDermott. And I know people don't like Sean McDermott, and I get it, but this is why I'm saying like you keep the guy because like this team crumbles with other coaches at the helm. So not saying I love McDermott, but I like him a lot more than some people do. And speaking of which, diehard Dan says McDermott should be ashamed for calling the field goal of death. Better lucky than good, I guess.
I was
John,
pretty nervous when they go for the field goal. It's like, well, all Arizona needs is a touchdown, and our defense is suspect. I was pretty nervous at that.
for some reason, our defense likes to hold the other receivers and get in their way, and not the. It's like,
I mean, but to their credit, like they were playing better in the second half as a defense. So I can understand why they're like, okay, well, if they keep playing the way they've been doing in the second half, let's do this. So it's hard. Like even on the Hail Mary at the end, where they blitzed, or maybe if they didn't blitz, something else could have happened. They've been in this situation so many times over the last 6 or 7 years. They get criticized every time it doesn't work one way or the other, and they do something different one way or the other, and it's like, well, what do you want? And it just happened to work this time.
yeah, I like what you said about the blitz coming on that play because I feel like in a Leslie Frazier like defense that Kyler Murray would have all day. In fact, I'm almost positive the Hail Murray happened on a Leslie Frazier defense when Kyler Murray was able to run around back there until he found DeAndre Hopkins in the corner of the end zone, right? Like, so if you look at it from that standpoint, I'd rather throw the house at Kyler Murray than let him stand back there and chuck one up on the last play of the game. You know what I mean? Like that was a good call. That was a good, well executed play. And it was nice to see them take that. So when people say, they didn't like, McDermott should be ashamed for calling field goal of death, I get it. I'm sure I don't know the statistics on it, but I like the field goal there because then, if you go for the touchdown and all you have is a field goal, then technically, like, all they have to do is get a field goal to keep it, a tie. Whereas now they needed that touchdown to win it, and they couldn't do it. If that was just for field goal, I mean, they'd be playing a lot different, strategy of, trying to just get down the field as opposed to, needing the win and playing all 4 downs. So I don't hate it. I don't hate the field goal of death. Obviously, it worked out, so I'm okay with it. Big R is in Big R in SD. Bill's fourth quarter decision making still not good enough to win it all. Thinking of the rush third down play in the fourth on offense that would have iced the game. Yeah, Anakin Skywalker says, if I have to hear another broadcast team say Diggs is the hot girlfriend meme for Buffalo during my Bills game, I will watch in silence. Buffalo versus everyone. Way to double dip, end of half. New faces, chemistry takes time. Every W matters. 1-0, Miami bound. I like it. I like his point there. Double dip at the end of the half. I mean, that was huge. To be able to go in the half, score a touchdown, come out of the half, score a touchdown. I mean, that's what good teams do. And it feels weird saying that. The Bills are a good team, and I know that out loud, but I think it's just my years of being a Bills fan that it feels kind of weird to say that like very confidently, I guess. AJ Tharp says, man, oh man, that Josh Allen guy is so overrated. He said with a laughing emoji. Shakir's new nickname is Pinball Wizard because the guy just bounces off defenders. I like that one. I like that as a Shakir nickname.
Wouldn't it just be pinball? Why would it be pinball wizard? Because he would be the little pinball, not the guy playing the pinball machine.
Yeah, good point. Good point. So he should be pinball. There's nothing you can just like add to that, like special because you're thinking pinball wizard. Sounds cool. It's a term, it's a song, pinball wizard. But pinball does make more sense from what you just said. Pinball. Khalil, pinball, Shakir. I like Shakir and bake, but Shakir and bake, shake and bake. Pinball makes more sense. AJ, we're gonna think about it. I like it though. I wish I was in Buffalo. Saxa Dave says, taking a year off drinking doesn't mix with football season, especially as a Bills fan. Dude, like I've never had to give up alcohol. I'm not saying that this is what Dave had to do, but dude, watching Bills games would make it tough to stay on the wagon, I feel. James Davis says, game 1, starters need to clean up the penalties. Yep. Kevin Rad says, good stuff from Rousseau. Nice to hear Miller's name. Would have been nice to hear Ed Oliver's name even once. Good point, Kev. We did not hear. I mean, Daquan Jones even had some good plays. Yeah, not a lot from Oliver, which is kind of crazy because, we're used to seeing more both sides of the ball. Tito Sampaio 0126 says both sides of the ball can improve. A few stupid/bad calls from the ref. And then Kev Rads did say, going to be a long season, too old for this. So I can't disagree with anything. So thank you guys all so much for tweeting into us during this episode of Circling the Wagons, this victory episode. Buffalo Bills 1-0, 1-0, baby. So are the Patriots. Oddly enough, the Patriots beat the Bengals today, which is kind of crazy. The Dolphins pulled one out at the end against the Jaguars. So upset at that. I was kind of hoping that they wouldn't find a way to pull that one out, but they did. They did. So
maybe it's better for us that the Dolphins will be desperate for a win on Thursday.
Yeah, good point. This
Now they're all
Thursday,
bruised in bed or barely beating the Jaguars, right?
yeah, definitely. I like that. They're bruised and battered, barely squeaking one out. They know they're in trouble. They're too tired from the barely victory that they had the week before. This is the time, man. It's the time.
Speaking of bruised and battered, did you hear anything about Taron Johnson? Is he going to be okay?
That's an excellent question. I did not hear from Taron Johnson. I feel like they didn't really get into it at the press conference at the end of the day. But now I'm looking up Taron Johnson. Banged up Bills, of course, the source for the Johnson looks to go in for a peanut punch, wraps up before getting too high and thrown off. Concern for moderate wrist flexor strain. So someone asked him right after that, do you think they keep him out of the game Thursday? And he said, possibly.
Short week.
I was kind of hoping they'd give him like just one of those club hands, like where you don't have to move your wrist. Like that's better than nothing, right? Like sure, you can't wrap up and tackle as well, but he's so good. He's so good. This Bills defense is different with Taron Johnson in it. I'm not saying they win, 34-21 or 34-10 or anything like that, but I I mean, that was a huge loss for the Bills defense early in the game, and he didn't come back.
Let's put casts on it. Larry Wilson was a Hall of Fame safety for the St. Louis Cardinals. He had casts on both his wrists, and he's still caught interceptions.
Really?
He's probably so pissed because he couldn't do anything with his arm. He's got pent up aggression.
And he's just like hitting himself in the head with his club. This isn't fair. Just letting it all loose. Yeah, maybe. Guys, thank you guys.
Could he still use his fingertips? What do you mean? Paint the picture for me.
That's all I know. I don't know. It's the 60s, man. Come on.
It's the 60s, man. Hey, man. It was all like, free love and no needing for hands to make interceptions, man. Like it was all, I cannot imagine. What's his name again? George what?
Larry Wilson.
Larry Wilson. George what?
Costanza?
Jeffrey who? Larry what? What was his last name? Too busy trying to tell a joke to actually listen. Larry what?
Wilson.
Wilson. Why didn't I just remember that? Larry Wilson. I'm looking up images of Larry Wilson without hands. He's definitely got hands in all these.
No, he had casts. No, he broke his wrist or something, or his hands or whatever. But he still caught an interception. Played for the Cardinals.
Oh, in that one game or all throughout his career?
I don't think through his whole career. I think it was just a game or two. But still impressive.
John, I'm not wanting to call you a liar or anything, but I can't find. I've just looked up Larry Wilson bandages, and I don't see anything.
No, look up Larry Wilson Hall of Fame.
Oh, well, I'm not saying he didn't get to the Hall of Fame. Injury. Be funny, I check it out, and the reason why he had those is because he had no hands the whole time.
He passed away just 4 years ago.
Jeez. Yeah, every picture I see of this gentleman is...
Yeah, St. Louis Cardinals, 1960 to 1972.
Hall of Fame career. Is a good-looking guy. Looks like Scott Bakula, man. I should share my screen.
There we go. Wilson is renowned for not only playing, but intercepting a pass with casts on both hands due to broken wrists. End quote.
Scott Bakula, right?
More of a John Kerry.
Larry Wilson's safe start. I feel like this might be like a guy who owns his own. Looks like a different. Wait, you're telling me that guy's not this guy? Wait a minute.
Larry Wilson could be a common name.
No, he just started his own.
Age comes for us all.
Yeah, definitely. Death comes for us all. No, I believe you, John. That's impressive. Never saw anyone catch a interception with two casts on. That's impressive. So cool, guys. Thank you so much for joining us on this first, episode of the season. We're 1-0. The Bills are facing the Dolphins on Thursday night. This is it's an exciting team. The one thing I was keeping in my head, I was like, they're down 17-3. I'm like, don't get upset if they lose. Don't get upset if they lose because it's an NFC team. At least it's not an AFC divisional, opponent, which count for like basically 2 games. So this is the game that really matters. This game, they all matter. This game coming up though. Huge game for the Buffalo Bills. At least it's, even though it's at the beginning of the season, it's at night. So it's not like they'll have to deal with, 90 degrees in the sun, while the Dolphins are in a 70-degree shaded area of the field. Like there's a lot of positives for this. So
what were your thoughts like as the Dolphins Jaguars game was coming down to the wire? Like, because obviously it's better if the Dolphins lose, but like they're playing the Bills next week, or they'd be more desperate for a win and all that kind of thing.
That's a good point, John. If they had lost and gone 0-1, I feel like they would have felt like they were in a hole and they would have tried a lot harder to get out of it. So I think you're right. I think this was, even though you wanted them to lose in general, right before the Bills, if the Bills game wasn't happening next week, I'd be upset, right? Like they didn't lose. And I obviously still wanted them to lose, but I think it's a lot better this way, mentality-wise, right?
By how much?
I want to say like a decent percentage. So 100% being a complete flip from one game to the next. I want to say 20-30%. I think it matters. I think if you're in a hole and you have your division rival coming into town, I think you put everything. It's your Super Bowl, basically. That game becomes your Super Bowl, right? But this week, it's like they'll try Thursday Night Football, but they got that one out of the way, so it's not so bad. What do you think? Do you think it matters if you give a percentage?
I don't know. I don't know if it's that high of a percentage.
You're more prone to hyperbole than anyone else I know.
They're going to try really hard.
That's true. I've never been hyperbolic in my entire life. There's not been one time I've ever exaggerated.
If they lose that game, they know they're losers. And that carries
They give up?
Like, We suck. We lost to the Jaguars. If you win, you're like, we're winners. We
Josh
can take
Allen
on anybody.
Josh Allen is a dolphin killer. So, like, I almost think it doesn't matter because they're going to be up for this game anyway.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, but
Doesn't matter except for 20 to 30% roughly, if we were giving an
I
estimate.
feel like that's too high.
you just pulled
What
that
would
out
you
of your.
I did with some logic, but if you guys were to say it meant anything, would you say like what, then 5% or like 1%?
5 to 10% maybe
Hmm.
difference at
Okay.
most.
Okay. I'd say about double that roughly, but Mike, you don't think it matters at all?
Triple the other way.
It actually helps them out, the fact that they won, right?
Yes.
Okay. I think this is the NFL. I don't think any team thinks like we stink, we're losers. Like even at the end of the year, like maybe they do in the middle of the year when they're going like 0-15 or something, but at some point they're like, holy crap, guys, we got to win one. We can't just go out this way, so
It might be more of a like looking ahead aspect. Like who are they playing the next week? So if anything, both teams might have been affected by that they're playing each other this in 4 days as opposed to who they're playing currently. So maybe we're just looking at it all wrong.
no, I think I'm looking at it right. I think you guys are a little bit off.
No, me too. I'm looking at it right.
Dude. Okay, whatever. So anyways, this was a blast talking to you guys. First episode. This is our 7th full season of Circling the Wagons, and this has been fun. I mean, we were on the Buffalo Rumblings Podcast Network for a while, and now we're in a new podcast. We went independent. Now we're with Buffalo Fan Base, and so this is an exciting time. Exciting time for us. Exciting time for the Bills. We're so glad you guys joined us on this episode of Circling the Wagons. Are there any final thoughts, John, Mike, before we end this victory recap episode? John, I'll start with you.
I have no final thoughts.
No final thoughts. Mike, you're good. Mike's always good. He gets out all his thoughts usually during the prayer. All right.
I could always do one more. What
all
do you
right,
want
do
to talk
one-
about? What do you
Do
want to
one
talk
more.
about?
The whole point is that you want to say something, not that I give you something to talk about.
No,
but
I'm good.
Signing off for John.
We're going back around again. We just went around.
I know, but we didn't sign off. We got to do the final sign off for this is how we start and end every
What do you guys think about James Cook?
Your mask? It's terrible.
He's pretty good.
Go ahead.
I thought James Cook gets some nice runs and Ray Davis, but Cook only had a 3.7 yards per carry though. Like it wasn't super efficient, but he was effective, right?
I like John's mask, by the way. As much as Mike tries to poo-poo on
Like
our
you
mask.
completely dismissed
James Cook. Oh yeah, James Cook. By the way, I thought he had better than 3.7 yards per carry for sure. It felt like it was. Maybe
I was looking for something to say on the sign off that would mess up your sign off. So I'm good. Go Bills.
Mike.
Go Bills.
And for me, Nate, go Bills. And we'll talk to you guys again next week.